So we're talking about 50 to 100 hertz. We're not talking about megahertz. We're not talking about
Right.
gigahertz. We're not talking about terahertz. We've gone beyond the pale as far as people who are very sensitive.
So
Okay. What
what's the significance of the ability or the design of these nano weapons to be impacted or activated by 5G or 4G technology?
destroys the blood, and it destroys the cell membrane. And so when the cell membrane is destroyed,
Mhm.
and I don't know if you're familiar with Warburg, and he received the Nobel Prize for discovering the cure for cancer.
In the
And
30s,
the
yeah.
way he described it was a reverse polarity of the cell membrane. In other words, the cell membrane lost its negative, it's called Zeta potential, lost its negative charge, and therefore it can't repel. So if it can't repel, it starts clotting with other blood cells, forming chains, which are called rouleau, or symplasms, which are blood clots. And this was one of the major symptoms of being exposed to EMF, or in this case, activated and amplified EMF because of the nanotechnology that was being placed in the body,
Mhm.
and the receiver receiving that EMF on a platform of graphene oxide and then expressing that out. So I made up a new word. The word is called transfection. So if you ever heard that word, you now know the source of where that word came from. Trans meaning crossed infection. In other words, this is all born in us and from us. What I like to simply say, Scott, to anyone who's listening, you do not have a disease. You are not sick. You've been chemically and radioactively poisoned. You've been poisoned. Chemical and radiation poisoning. This is what happens. The transfection comes in this because it's multi-tiered. I mentioned the Trypanosoma cruzi parasites. It was implemented in the Pfizer. This is where I found it. And I found this not only in the vaccine, but we're finding it in the blood. We're also finding a malaria parasite called mycofilariae. That microfilariae is also being distributed as a carrier of this technology. And if you ever seen any of my pictures, you'll see the parasite, and it's literally barnacled with graphene. Now we know it's graphene because we've used directed X-ray spectroscopy to determine this. And so we not only have micrographs of scanning and transmission electron micrographs, yes, we can see them when they start aggregating in their bigger form. So anyone that's saying this thread or this ribbon or this cluster is graphene, they need to back that up with a directed energy spectroscopy. And the reason they can't back it up is because these machines cost $140,000. So you can't go to the hobby shop and buy some beginner microscope and then start declaring out what one is finding unless you have the evidence. This has now been peer reviewed and published. Okay. And it's being read by millions of people. Just off my site, drrobertyoung.com, you can see the expanded, not the reduced article, but the expanded. It's close to 100 pages. But we're talking about 5.5 billion people that were inoculated, of which a major percentage of those received placebos. Where's all the rest of this coming from? It's coming from graphinating our water to take out microplastics, but you end up with highly electromagnetic material of graphene. So these poisons are in the water you're drinking now. The municipal water is loaded with this technology. It's now in the air, okay, through chemtrailing or however they want to deliver. It's being aerosoled. You can't get away from it in the food. I'm finding it in the food. We're finding it in personal care products. So when I was looking at the blood, I was finding this not just in the vaccinated, but the unvaccinated.